Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lightspeed. I'm your host, Jack Kubanek, joined today by Dan Smith. We're going to be doing a little bit of a Roundup episode to recap a really crazy weekend following Argentine President Javier Milei launching a meme coin called Libra and its many discontents and fallout. Dan, thanks for coming on the pod.
Yeah, absolutely. Pumped to be here as always. And I guess less pumped to be here to talk about fraud and scams, but that's where we're at.
I think the goal for today is I don't want to spend too much time getting too in the weeds about everything that happened because there's lots of names being thrown around. There are a lot of people on Twitter making all sorts of allegations. I think that will all be sorted out down the line. There will almost certainly be some kind of legal action that comes out of this. So I will leave all of that to investigators and lawyers and so forth. But I want to just do a quick overview of the situation and then zoom out because I think my feeling over the weekend, Dan, and I don't know if you were similarly, was I didn't get why this was such a bigger deal than every other disastrous meme coin launch. You had Melania, you had Enron, the Trump coin even wasn't great trading wise. These things all have the same exact chart. And so it felt strange that this one led to a very real public meltdown with, real fallout. Meteor CEO steps aside, all this kind of thing. So maybe I'll just start with that, Dan, before we get into it. Is do you think what do you make of the response and how big it's been?
Yeah, so obviously a lot to unpack, but I think first of all, this was let's say the straw that broke the camel's back because this Hayden fellow from this Kaiser group basically just put all the cards on the table about how these are just, mass extraction events. Insiders get to buy early. They know when it's coming. It's maybe even pre-sold allocations to them, and they dump when other people buy. So I think the blatant and clear evidence and self-admission that A, this person was responsible for a lot of it, and B, more importantly, it's happening, really just shook it up, right? And I think there's allegations that they were, as you mentioned, involved in the Millennia launch. And so you're right, that was roughly the exact same thing. That launch didn't really sit great with people, but the social sentiment is 100 to 1,000 times worse today than it was for that one. And, they're actually the exact same thing. It now appears. So I think there's a couple reasons also why this one just feels so much worse is these things are getting layered on top of each other. It's one scammy meme coin, two scammy meme coins, the 1,000th scammy meme coin. And eventually, you have this watershed moment where people are like, okay, I cannot physically do this anymore. And you could kind of feel that over the last couple months, honestly. It's the meta wasn't really changing. It was the same game over and over again. And you get to this point of complacency and frustration when everything larger markets just chop sideways. The sub games aren't going well anymore. People get bored and upset. That's sort of just regular human nature. But again, this one kind of really exploded because the compelling evidence that this was a coordinated scam. People are rightfully upset about that. Right. And it kind of seemed clear that there was some sort of coordinated efforts around the Trump launch, right? The way it launched, it had all these integrations on day one. There was clearly a group behind it. Now, there being a group behind it doesn't make it inherently malicious, but I think it raised a lot of eyebrows, especially with the 80% insider allocation there. And then now when you basically see that what can't the bad things of what can be done with that 80% insider allocation of pre-selling it or just leaking it and giving other people insider information about what the contract address is, when it's going live and things of that nature, especially to these streamers that have viewers that are watching to buy what they buy. It's gross and it leaves a horrible taste in people's mouths. So yes. I think, it's just kind of been this explosion moment where people are I don't know. It feels like everyone wants something to yell at right now, and this is actually something worth yelling at.
Yes, it's the brazenness of it. You had the LA vape cabal kids, admitting on Twitter, and there's videos of streams where they're kind of accidentally implicating themselves a little bit. That there's insider stuff that goes on, which I felt like that was something that was sort of known if we didn't know exactly that there was a guy named Hayden that was like helping organize it all. But I always at least had a sense that these meme coin launches were, bought up by insiders and they like pump and dump because you can look at the chart. But like you said, I think it's the brazenness of it, and I think crypto loves main characters, and I think Hayden, for whatever reason, made himself a main character over the weekend. That's the other strange thing to me is I don't know why you go do the CoffeeZilla interview. I don't know why you make any kind of video. Like I think if he had a lawyer talking to him, that lawyer would say, "Hey, delete your Twitter and, stay offline for as long as you can." So I don't exactly know what the game theory is of
Totally
doing
agree.
all these interviews in public.
The interviews were insane. Like I definitely encourage people to just go skim through the CoffeeZilla one, or even though he'd like did I think it was like a stream thing with Dave Portnoy and just like admitted crimes. It was crazy. It was crazy.
I don't get shocked by much. I really don't. Like the CoffeeZilla interview, my jaw dropped. There's a moment in that video where CoffeeZilla is like, okay, so because a lot of the video is him justifying sniping meme coin launches. And he's basically saying, we pre-snipe these meme coins so that other people don't, and then we can pump the chart after it dumps, which super tenuous logic there. But then CoffeeZilla is like, okay, so what you're basically saying is like, you have a bank. You know the bank is going to get robbed. So you rob your own bank so that when everyone else comes to rob the bank, there's no money in the bank, and then you'll put the money back later. And he's like, yeah, that's a pretty good comparison. And I was like, what? Like, yeah, we're just admitting to crimes. We're at that point. It was so brazen. Let me just walk through events really quick for what we know now so that it's on the table and we can structure this a little bit. So February 14th, Friday, Valentine's Day, about, I think, 5:00 Eastern, Javier Milei, president of Argentina, friendly with Trump and sort of a libertarian kind of free market figure, announced that he is launching a meme coin called Libra that is meant to support Argentinian small business, whatever that means. It quickly goes to over $4 billion in market cap and very, very quickly dumps to like 400 million. So essentially a 90% fall within, I believe, hours. And listen, there's lots of meme coins that crash, but I think that's a pretty huge pump and huge dump. And it seems to have had like real world fallout. So the next day, everyone's talking. People are trying to figure out who's behind this. Another important detail is that Milei then made a follow-up tweet after the token dumps where he says, I was tricked. I should never have worked with these people, these scum, and sort of removes himself from the situation. Over the weekend, this guy named Hayden, who works at a firm called Kelsier Ventures that no one had really heard of until this weekend, comes out and admits that he's behind a lot of these launches, including also the Melania token. And he did a lot of kind of market making stuff where they would snipe up a bunch of tokens early with the idea, I guess, that they could like pump the chart later. But there's another way of looking at this, which is just saying you're publicly promoting tokens that you're buying early. And it also seems clear that this was heavily insider traded. A lot of people knew about the Argentina coin before I went live. I will be honest, I heard rumblings about it and was asking around. I never knew that an Argentina coin was going out, but if I'm hearing things, it's not the best kept secret in the world. As far as other fallout, Argentina's stock market crashed 5% on Monday. Solana is down 10% over the weekend. It seems like it's still declining. There was also just a lot of Milei also got sued in Argentina. There's a lot of content that came out of this. So Dave Portnoy did a stream with Hayden where I guess it came out that he lost 5 million trading Libra and then was refunded, which rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Why Dave Portnoy was refunded his money, but everyone else that traded wasn't. There also was a CoffeeZilla interview that we mentioned before where Hayden explains that he was sniping these tokens as soon as they came out. And then last night, I believe, a video came out apparently with the CEO of another company involved in this, speaking with Ben, who's the CEO of Meteora, which is the uh, AMM that works with a lot of these meme coin launches. And Ben seems to be learning that he has been involved with someone who's kind of using this meme coin launchpad platform called M3M3 to insider trade or whatever. And he resigns. I thought that video was very strange personally. I have no information on this, but just purely off the eye test, it felt almost staged. I don't know Ben. I've never even spoken to him. So I don't want to say too strongly, but first of all, it's like a crime in a lot of states to record a phone call and then leak it without telling the other person. So there's that. And then secondly, I don't know, just the whole thing gave me weird vibes. I don't know, Dan, that's all of the situation, but what did you kind of make of that?
This episode is brought to you by Bonk Bets, the fully permissionless sportsbook built on Solana. Bet with Bonk, Solana, or USDC and get automatic payouts for winners. Every bet that you take earns Bonk Bets points towards cashback, discounts on losses, and more. Lightspeed listeners get 10% back on losses to bet again. Just visit bonkbets.io/Lightspeed or click the link in the show notes. Just a quick disclaimer that exclusions apply and Bonk Bets is not available in all jurisdictions. Thanks to Bonk Bets for making today's episode possible.
Yeah, let's work backwards from the Fallout things there. So yeah, starting with the video. This was put out by Solana Floor, I believe. Everyone should go check out that video. It's definitely interesting to say the least. I'm not super familiar with the other individual that was on the so it's like allegedly Ben and this other DeFi founder. Again, I'm not super familiar with who he is or which protocol he founded. But yeah, it was definitely weird. I don't know. I really don't know. Like, okay, I guess the worst case scenario here is Meteora was like complicit in enabling these scams. That would be the disaster situation for basically everybody involved. The Launchpad is putting the tokens out.
I think that's the official story. Is we have this meme coin Launchpad that's supposed to make meme coin launches better. We trusted somebody that we shouldn't have trusted, and that's why Ben stepped aside. That's the official story.
Let's say hypothetically, if the Meteora team like knew Kelsier was like just going for this massive extraction event, like, and they still enabled this to happen, is that like, I guess, the downside or the worst case scenario?
I think that the concern is that, so like, say again, all theoretical, but the concern is Meteora has this meme coin Launchpad. It's working with teams like Kelsier who are helping people like Javier Milei launch their own meme coins. And you need to do market making stuff. So like you need to have a bunch of the token supply. But if you're doing that, what's to stop you from taking a few people you like and leaking the contact address an hour before it comes out and letting them buy a ton? And like every meme coin ever is heavily not insider traded, but it's sniped is the term people use, which means like moments after it launches, people will put 100 soul into it or something and make a ton of money. That's all known to happen. I think it's a bridge too far, I guess, for people if this is being done on purpose and like the contact addresses are being leaked to certain insiders.
Yes. And I feel like that is a bridge too far, to be honest, right? If you you're supposed to be the thing solving the problem and then you're actually facilitating the problem, I would be pretty pissed to find that to be true. One interesting tidbit of this, like I watched a video also and was like, I don't know. I don't know anybody involved. So like, it's hard to have an opinion about, is it staged? Are these things truthful that are being said? Like, I don't know. It's tough to it's very easy to want to be like, oh, clearly that's true. This guy's a liar. Let's all hate him. I'd really always try to not do that in these situations. And then there's actually a couple of people that came out in support of Jupiter and that team that I hold in like a very high moral regard. One of those being Eugene Chen, the co-founder of Phoenix, or Ellipsis Labs, who builds Phoenix and now Atlas. I think he's like a very above the bar person, and he like just put out a tweet saying like, hey, I've always had great experiences with these people, and like I kind of stand with them during this time, basically. Obviously paraphrasing there. And so that kind of like put up my radar of like, okay, like let's not try to rush to a conclusion here. But I don't know. I definitely agree. If they were participating in facilitating these issues, huge problems. Like it may, and the fact he stepped down, I don't know if that's like an admission of guilt or just like I did enough I didn't do enough to prevent this scam is also like a reason to step down. So it's like I don't think that's like this admission of guilt thing either.
Yeah, I mean, again, like Ben, I don't know him, but he at least deserves to the like innocent until proven guilty standard, I guess you could say. I think there's also going to be this effect that's going on that you saw after the FTX collapse, where when somebody becomes enough of a pariah or some event in crypto is sufficiently bad, everybody wants to condemn it so that they can be seen as condemning it. And so they're on the side of the good guys and not on the side of the bad guys. So it was like, I don't know, when FTX blew up, you had like VC firms writing these tweet threads about why they passed on investing in FTX when, like, in fact, they had no idea what was going on, just like nobody else did.
Another interesting thing is we've actually seen similar things happen like pretty often in meme coins and non-meme coins. One recent example of a non-meme coin, like a project token that launched and then had an insider like profit pretty greatly off of it, was Venice VVV. It launched on Base through Aerodrome, and an Aerodrome team member like traded it, made a bunch of money, and I believe the Aerodrome team let that person go as well. So like these things do happen. It comes into like these are unregulated markets, and we either self-police or these things continue to happen. So it's interesting. It was Sam CZ Zun has been putting out different threads and just like thought ideas of how the social layer of crypto can play a better role in this. Like when these things do happen, we almost need to excommunicate these people that are involved, right? So in this case, like very obviously this Hayden individual, or like rewinding to last cycle, right? Like, if Do Kwon tried to come back, like, yeah, guys, we should probably like prevent this. Or even the Three Arrows guys, like they're still around and people still interact with them. And like, is that really the best idea if we want to start self-policing and trying to push this industry forward? Or anyone who ever launched in a scam NFT rug, like it's the same thing, or an ICO. I was listening to Bell Curve yesterday, and it was the episode with Austin Adams, and he had an interesting quote that was like, ICOs were tokens with white papers, NFTs were tokens with pictures, and meme coins are just like a whole new evolution of that same evolutionary path, right? And all of those things had scams, but the marginal cost of launching a meme coin is like multiple orders of magnitude lower than either running an ICO or creating a 10K PFP NFT collection. And so because of that, the raw number of scams you have increases. And I think that's what we're seeing. And so because it's just like getting punched in the mouth, maybe like with the ICOs, it was like 1 in every 10 punched you in the mouth. NFTs, it was like 1 in every 5. Now it's like 1 in every 3. So I think this like acceleration of the number of scams is kind of the painful part.
This is an interesting side note, but it feels like there's very little correlation between the effort put into the meme coin launch and the success of the meme coin launch. So you look at something like Enron, where I don't know a ton, like I don't know the team, but that guy had to acquire the like IP rights for Enron. He spent months doing these like fake promotions that it was like a very good balance of it. Is it the bid or isn't it? They did all this stuff to prep, and then the token traded horribly. It got sniped and it nuked. People are now alleging that it's tied up in all this same kind of insider trading stuff. And then you look at the Trump coin, which, I don't know, Trump was like sent a paragraph to tweet and he tweeted it, and then it went up to, I forget how many billion. So there's no need to have a white paper. There's no need to have a roadmap. It's purely an attention play, and the amount of effort that you put in doesn't really correlate to how well your meme coin does.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the other piece that's just like hard to sit with is when there was an ICO scam, you could still point to the onslaught of successful ICOs, right? And you're like, okay, well, yeah, sure, we got scammed a couple of times, but there is things to lean back on that are real, right? And NFTs, like, definitely less so than ICOs, but we still have pudgy penguins. They're still around. They're still building. They're still doing cool things and iterating. Whereas with meme coins, it's like, oh yeah, like we just got scammed for the 3rd time in the last month, and they're still valueless tokens. So I think that's also the harder piece to chew on. And then when we look at DeFi from last cycle to DeFi to now, I think like the hard reality is it took like 2 years to really churn, like hit that point of like the next churn and iteration, right? If you look at some of the largest protocols, like MakerDAO is still very much figuring out its end game. It's tried this rebrand thing. It's got the new token now. I think Spark's doing incredibly well. Sam McPherson's driving a great ship there, but like there's still like a lot of question marks, and the token's traded horribly. If you look at Uniswap, it took a long time to get V4 out the door. It just shipped. They also just launched their chain. So like between the end of last cycle and now, not much has really shifted in that landscape. Again, like they just did these massive things, but those haven't come to fruition yet and like really changed the landscape. Aave, same thing, right? They're talking about building a chain. They've put out how they want to build their V4, but it doesn't exist yet, right? And I'm not trying to trash or thrash these teams. I think it's just important to help understand the sentiment right now. Like all of the marginal improvements were not in DeFi. They were like in these like iterative games. And then even zooming in on Solana, it actually has changed considerably over the last 2 years. But the major point is it's only caught up to like Ethereum DeFi. It hasn't really put in these like net new things, right? Order books aren't like prevalent on Solana, right? We still have like Drift and Phoenix trying to do that, but like they're not dominating the volume by any means. So I think that's really the big frustration here is like DeFi is what everybody really, really wants to like be the game changer. And it hasn't had that huge acceleration moment that we did see during last cycle. So like when things go wrong, it feels like there's nothing new to lean back on as like this, like, all right, well, at least we've got X.
Yeah, 100%. It has to be, if you're dedicating your life to building in crypto, it has to be incredibly frustrating. I was texting a prominent Solana builder over the weekend, and this person was like, look, this makes me want to quit. Like, what are we doing here? The most prominent headlines you see are about this huge scam carried out by the the president of Argentina. So there is that. I think a broader conversation I want to tap into, Dan, is there were a lot of calls over the weekend that was basically like, look, we need the quote unquote social layer to hold these players accountable. We need basically, I guess, social sentiment to punish really extractive, insidery meme coin launches so that they no longer happen. Do you think that's possible? Like, to me, that just feels a little bit like a silver bullet solution that's not really real. Because at the end of the day, I think pragmatically, if people are making money off of meme coins, there's going to be some kind of market to keep working on them. So do you think that the quote unquote social layer can stigmatize this type of thing to the point where it doesn't happen? And if not, like, what are the kinds of solutions that you would look for this kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the social layer can play a meaningful role, but the silver bullet, I don't know. Like it's pretty rare you get a silver bullet in like literally anything. And I think this is no different. I think it's just got to be a combination of things. I think we just need to be better about self-policing. When something like very obviously goes wrong, it's like we spend so much time bitching about, oh, well, this was a scam, but hey, this scam's way worse. It's like, okay, like that's not helpful. Right? Like, I don't know. That's basically all the timeline is right now. Is like, oh yeah, well, Libra was a scam on my chain, but your chain had these 3 scams last year. And it's like, guys, that is super, super meaningless. So that's kind of my, I don't know. I can't even like open Twitter without just like bitching everywhere. And that's frustrating. Yeah. So I think it needs to be more like acceptance that this was a clear and obvious scam. Acceptance that meme coins make scamming easier, but are not inherently bad or evil. They can just be more easily abused. I think that's like an important recognition. And then also that scams happen everywhere, always, across every industry. Look at the history of the stock market. Like, dude, the thing is fucking rife with scams. Most notably, like with an exclamation point on something like Bernie Madoff. But you can go way back in history, and like this is not new by any stretch of the margin. And I think it's also important to remember that, because I do feel like, I don't know if it's just like this day and age thing with social media and like how fast and quickly news spreads, but the sensationalism is pretty ridiculous, I think, right? Like when something bad happens, it's like literally World War III just happened. And I guess that's not the case, right? This is a very bad thing that happened, but like honestly, my gut reaction is if we do a Libra catch-up episode 30 days from today, like it's going to all be blown over. And then probably 3 months from now, somebody goes to jail. So I don't know. Like we actually might not have to self-police this one, because I'm pretty sure that Hayden dude lives in LA, and like, dude, to your point about the lawyer and like not talking, I think that was a bad move.
Yeah, maybe the craziest part of all of this, and I do think that Hayden becoming like a main character in all this helped it blow up as big as it did. I guess the thought on meme coins. So publicly on this show, I don't think we've ever been like great fans of meme coins, and people can go listen to past episodes. Like they're not to be taken seriously. They are a form of gambling, and I think that morally, I don't have as much of a problem with them if they are very clearly pitched as, this is a meme coin, you can lose money. It's not like an ICO where I wrote a white paper and I'm trying to convince you that we built a blockchain for dog walkers or whatever. It is just purely like trading on sentiment and as a joke. I think that's been the mode of thinking I think that we've taken on this podcast, is they're not serious, but as long as people know they're gambling, people are adults and they're allowed to gamble, and that's fine. But then again, should Solana's quote unquote social layer, insofar as it exists, be actively looking to distance itself from this stuff? Because it seems like maybe this is the inevitable outcome, is when it's quote unquote crime season, like actual crimes happen and people lose a lot of money, and that isn't good for Solana if you're looking to build permissionless internet capital markets that are going to be more broadly adopted than just in the very like self-referential crypto world. So, but to your point, Dan, it feels like wishful thinking. I don't think that this stuff is going to go away. Crypto has always been largely driven by speculation. Meme coins are the latest iteration of that. So I really don't know where you go from here, or if there is a good solution.
Yeah. I mean, I agreed. Like, I think I don't know. This is where it gets kind of tough for me, because it's like, maybe I'm being like too optimistic here, but I don't think like the Solana community that I talk to embraces crime. But then like, I don't know, there's a picture going around, and of course it was from like some, very pro Ethereum account, but it was this Hayden dude with like what he called the Solana people. And like, dude, I didn't recognize a single person on the picture. And it's like the whole LA vape cabal scene. Like, to me, that is not like the Solana builder community. So I don't know, like the community that I talk to, like people are just like, okay, yeah, meme coins, they just are, like, it is what it is. Like, I don't know, play them if you want to play them, don't play them if you don't want to play them. I don't think they're going away either, to be honest. Like, I'm not super bearish meme coin activity here. I'm really not. And I know that's like a super hot take right now, and like sort of like saying you like the devil, but I really don't. Actually, I'm going to pull up. I'm curious if like pump fund activity has changed at all. And I don't think it's been enough time to like really have any effect, but just given that Sol BTC, Sol ETH are both down roughly 15%. So even on like a relative basis, Solana, the token, is trading pretty poorly. I'm pretty curious if there were just any material changes to like what's happening on chain. So as far as go ahead.
Solana being down 10% just feels like an overreaction to me. I
agreed. That's
the
sensationalism piece, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. And then I don't know, some of the liquid funds I've talked to have like had the unlock discussions and be like, okay, like they're kind of like scaring us, but we'll kind of hold steady here. So I think it might be the 2 second, like the 1-2 punch there, with like really bad social sentiment right now, for sure. Everybody on Twitter is shitting on it, and like you can definitely over and under index on what the importance of that, but I think it's just something you should be aware of. And then like the second piece being the unlocks, like starting like weeks, a couple days. So it's like, if you were already hesitant and now it's just like getting thrashed on Twitter, it's like, all right, fuck it, like sell now, revisit it in 30 days. If I have to buy back 10% higher, so be it. But one really interesting thing here, and a shout out to Mike. I feel like I give him a shout out every fucking podcast I'm on, so maybe I take it back. But he noted that like Bitcoin looks so good here, and like all of this other noise is happening, right? It's been a hard cycle for a lot of assets, And right now it's been a hard 30 days for a lot of assets. Bitcoin's at like 96. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. That is something we really haven't seen before. And I think that really goes to show you where Bitcoin is sitting right now. Like I would like have never been like a huge Bitcoin guy. I like respect it, thought it was always great, but like I didn't think it would hit that nation state adoption level. And I think it's like it's right on the cusp of that. That's personally surprised me, but I find it interesting. And I guess just to tie us back into the pump fund piece, like yeah, new token launches are unchanged, and graduation rate is like literally unchanged.
Unchanged at like 0.5% or something.
Let's see. Yesterday was 1.2%.
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good.
And the 50,000 new tokens, which let's call that roughly the average of since February. So over the last 2 weeks.
Today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax Calculator. Accurate crypto taxes, no guesswork. Get accurate CPA-endorsed tax reports with full support for IRS rules. With more than 3,000 integrations, TurboTax Calculator supports all of your wallets, exchanges, and on-chain activity. And you can import directly to TurboTax or H&R Block, or share securely with your accountant. You can use our exclusive discount code BW2025 to enjoy 30% off all paid TurboTax Calculator plans. That's BW2025 for 30% off.
This episode is brought to you by Bonk Bets, the fully permissionless sportsbook built on Solana. Bet with Bonk, Solana, or USDC and get automatic payouts for winners. Every bet that you take earns Bonk Bets points towards cashback, discounts on losses, and more. Lightspeed listeners get 10% back on losses to bet again. Just visit bonkbets.io/Lightspeed or click the link in the show notes. Just a quick disclaimer that exclusions apply, and Bonk Bets is not available in all jurisdictions. Thanks to Bonk Bets for making today's episode possible.
Yeah, no surprise there, I would say. I think just on the markets piece as well, one other thought is that the market feels like everywhere, not just even in crypto, but you look at the DeepSeek sell-off and how kind of absurd that was. It feels like markets everywhere are just really skittish right now because there's this kind of post-election pump, and
that's great framing.
Now all these tariffs are happening, and I was talking to the producer of our show actually off the air, and he was mentioning a sign is when good news doesn't make the market go up, but bad news really makes it go down. That's a sign that things have shifted, and I think we're in that territory where I don't know, it feels like a big overcorrection for Solana to be down 10% on news that this guy Hayden insider traded a meme coin, but that's where we are.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. And for those of you that follow me on Twitter, you know that I do my weekly Rev updates. And this week's was actually extremely interesting. So REV was in a hot debate over the last couple of days, even ignoring the whole Libra thing. And then when the Libra thing happened, people were like, oh, look, Solana REV is nuked because nobody's doing meme coin stuff anymore. I think it's pretty interesting to look at the last 7 days of Solana REV, which captures a good bit of this whole Libra occurrence and then fallout. So Solana saw about 70 million in weekly REV. BNB came in second at 15, Tron in third at 12, and Ethereum in fourth at 9 million.
Attaboy BNB.
And so that market share breakdown looks pretty interesting as well. So Solana at 63%, BNB at 14, Tron at 11, and Ethereum at 8%. So that's actually, I think this ties directly into the markets conversation because global REV is trending lower. And I find it really hard to believe that so a meme coin that gets insider traded by this dude Hayden on Solana is having some, backlash on what's happening on Base, for example. Right. That doesn't really track for me. Especially because there's really not an abundance. Memes aren't what drives Base REV, and yet Base REV is down. The other takeaway I had is this is the first time ever on a weekly time frame that Ethereum has fallen to fourth on the REV rankings, which is kind of wild to me. Once it was born, and then it was really only Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then Tron came about, so it literally couldn't ever be fourth because there was only 3 chains. And then once it kind of hit that swing in 2020, it was always 1 or 2. And And yeah, dropping to fourth is pretty notable for me. And that's another reason why, like over the weekend, okay, right now gas is at 0.9. Over the weekend it was at like 0.6. I think that's to me, that's the lowest I've ever seen. I should run the data in here, and I think that's probably an all-time low. So there's just a huge lull in on-chain activity. And I think that ties back to the previous discussion where I talked about how like the marginal improvements of DeFi are like just now hitting like the being implemented. I guess two notable outliers there as well as like Pendle and Athena. But so it's like not inclusive of everything, obviously. But I think on the whole, that's just kind of where we're at.
Yeah. I guess I want to zoom out and maybe take a look forward as well, because another response that's common that I think is a little misguided is you'll see maybe a lot of like Solana ecosystem people trying to defend Solana and being like, well, it's time for people to focus on long-term builders. Like, it feels like every time something scammy happens, it's like, well, at least we have DePIN. I mean, look at all this real tech being built out. And that comparison just doesn't work for me, because meme coins are like a short-term kind of just gambling game that people can play. And DePIN is you're building out a decentralized cellular network. Like, they might as well not even be the same market sector. It's just, they're different things. And I don't necessarily see why, what meme coins have to do with like Helium, for instance. They're just, I guess they're both crypto tokens that use blockchain technology, but otherwise they're somewhat different things. And things like DePIN are going to take a long time to build out, and you can't just snap your fingers and have everyone start to quote unquote care about DePIN. Like, people are going to care about what's happening, and what's happening is meme coins. So
yeah, DePIN's actually super interesting for the reasons you note, though. Like, if you can get a crypto asset that has uncorrelated revenue to the rest of the market, that's fascinating and extremely exciting from an investment opportunity. Basically everything is pretty correlated to meme coin trading today, right? Like, Solana, REV relies on it. Your favorite DEX likely relies on it. Lending protocols, maybe a little bit less so, but they're very reliant on the native token, which tends to rely on meme coin trading. So yes, I love that angle. I think DePIN's pretty exciting for that reason.
I just want to ask, like, I don't think we need, more condemnation or moralizing about the situation. Just putting on your prediction hat. Like, what do you think happens in the meme coin space? Does Libra and its fallout have a measurable impact on the amount of meme coin trading that happens, or do we just go forward business as usual and there's some kind of lawsuit that comes out, a couple weeks down the line?
I'm not a lawyer, so like, even all the times I said this is probably illegal, like,
sure, yeah.
It feels illegal. I don't know. It definitely feels illegal.
It should.
So, and then just I don't know. I don't know about the legal side. I really don't. And even the Hayden guy who, like, what I think admitted to crimes, I don't want to make him like the bastardized person of this whole thing, but I do think if all this ends up being true and like that gets proven to be the case, which it really feels like we're there, then yes, like, these are the types of moments where we need to like push these people out and do not let them back in. I like, from a social layer, they're obviously permissionless blockchains, and like, you can only do so much, but I think that's the biggest challenge here. Zooming out, yeah, like I said, I'm not super bearish meme coin trading. I think like in 2 weeks from now, 30 days from now, people kind of like largely forget. And like, even yesterday, no change in pump fund tokens created or graduated. Like, I think pump fund carries a super heavy stick here. They've kind of been at they are meme coin trading today, and they've catalyzed a lot of their growth around of it. So they hold this interesting position of being able to drive the meta shift. I've talked a lot about the meta shift of like this broader category of like on-chain speculative gambling. I really need a better name for it, but like the evolution of Dogecoin to NFTs to meme coins. And there's like a lot of things in between, but like largely those are the buckets, I would say. I think we know that this game shifts, and we know that there's demand to play this game. I do not I absolutely am not bearish that game dying. I am pretty sure that game will evolve again, right? Like these are one of those big blow up moments where you're like, all right, this game fucking sucks. We need a new one. And I really think Pump Fund's in a position to do something about that. They've also made $500 million in like, I think they have like, which is insane, but I think they are also like now probably past the point of like, this is working. We got magic in a bottle. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like I don't know. I think they like probably acknowledge the founder actually put out a pretty interesting thread on it. Let's put it in the show notes because I would encourage everyone to just take a look at that and kind of it puts things in perspective from their position. They also just launched a mobile app, right? So like I don't think meme coin trading is going anywhere. People are still leaning into it, and it's getting easier to interact with. So all of those things being said, like I'm just not bearish meme coin trading as is, and like you can hate it, I don't care. Like I don't love it. It just is, and it's going to happen, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think we need to really focus on like how do you eliminate the scams, and that's like a really hard problem to solve, right? Like if you do these things if you launch tokens that don't have value, like there's nothing to be the lower bound on that thing. So even with like the VVV launch we talked about earlier, like it had this huge scam lick and then got dumped to hell. And then it's like, all right, like this is actually a real product. Like there's a floor here somewhere. So that's the big difference with like, even when things go wrong on real product launches, there's still a real product. And that's just the fundamental issue with meme coins. And I don't think it's going away because I think there will be demand to trade them. And I don't think you can just like squander that demand somehow. And so the other thing that I'll end on is people blame meme coins for like their DeFi tokens not going up or whatever, which I think is pretty silly because if there's a fundamental driver for the price of that DeFi token, it will go up regardless of what anybody thinks about it or has an opinion about. The reason why a lot of those DeFi tokens didn't go up is because there is no fundamental driver because the business sucks.
Yep.
So that's the other thing to just put in perspective here.
Yeah.
Meme coins are not the enemy of everything. They're just an expression of human demand to participate in a speculative game. It's really that simple.
Mm. And I think that's right too, that I think a lot of the relevant parties, the pump funds, the Meteoras, Jupiter, are going to release some kind of new protocol way of doing things, feature to prevent something like this from happening again. I think we're that far down the line through the looking glass on meme coins that you need to like do something in response. But all that to say, I think we'll end it there. Dan, it's been fun getting into putting our detective hats on, talking some crime. Hopefully we'll have happier things to talk about in future episodes, but really appreciate you coming on to break it all down.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure. We'll see you next time.
All right, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.